Welcome. Okay, Drew has his sustainable coffee mug now, so we can proceed. It's titanium. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us at this, what I hope to be a really fun, thought-provoking panel for everybody. Welcome. This session is part panel, part workshop, and we're going to dig into a part of the entrepreneurial landscape that's too often sidelined, the creative economy. For those who are wondering, the creative economy is made up of people who make a living by making things, ideas, stories, experiences, and culture. It spans everything from fashion to film to music and design, architecture, digital media. It's not just about art. It's about how creativity drives jobs, builds identity, and powers place-based economies. When we say creative entrepreneurs, we're talking about people building businesses in culture-rich industries. Bookstores, production studios, creative spaces, design firms, and media platforms, among many, many others. But what sets them apart isn't just what they make, it's that they're also quietly building infrastructure. Infrastructure that attracts talent, builds identity, and makes cities places people actually want to live. So here's an interesting thing. Creative entrepreneurs are founders, but they don't always get treated like founders. They don't always get access to the capital, the visibility, or support systems that more traditional entrepreneurs do. Jonathan Ortman said something on main stage yesterday that really stuck with me, that every dollar that fails to move the needle is a risk to the credibility of our entrepreneurial missions. And in creative economies, dollars often fail to move the needle, not because the work lacks value, but because it's misunderstood, unmeasured, and often unsupported. So one of our goals today is to make the case for why creativity must be treated as a strategy and not just style, and to ask what we gain if we do and what we risk if we don't. We'll start with our panelists who are founders and ecosystem builders who are already doing this work, followed by a discussion about the various ins and outs of creative entrepreneurship. Then we'll invite you to roll up your sleeves in roundtable discussions to help map out what's missing in your own cities and how we can start building towards a more inclusive, resilient, and imagination-fueled economy. So I'm going to let my fine panelists speak for themselves and introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about what they do and who they are, and share a little bit about their adventures. I'm going to, first up, start with Drew. Drew, tell the audience who you are and what you do and what's new.
I sat next to you, which means can everybody hear me? Okay, I sat next to you, which means I have to go first. So,
well,
sorry.
Yeah, I was actually going to make Jake first, but then you guys said in the wrong order, and so it's
I voluntold myself.
Whatever.
Sorry.
It's whatever.
We'll figure it out. We'll get good at this right when the panel's over. So my name is Drew Kinchis. I currently reside in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The weather there is violent. But there's a lot of really fun things going on there, in case you haven't been. My relation to this panel is I spent the last 10 years in Indianapolis working on a variety of different entrepreneurial-focused endeavors. I ran a couple of different co-working facilities here in Indianapolis. I ran the 1 Million Cups chapter of Indianapolis for a few years. But one of the big things that I worked on while I was at the Chamber of Commerce was what was called the Indie Music Strategy Project. Do I need to go into details about that now, or should I wait? Okay. Indie Music Strategy was the creation, the output from an organization called Sound Diplomacy, which is a nonprofit out of London, I believe, in the UK. And their objective is to go to different metropolitan areas and figure out how they can create equitable and sustainable solutions for musicians specifically, and figuring out how musicians can make a living and do it in a way that helps them to have a greater quality of life.
You forgot to mention that you yourself are a musician, in fact.
I'm a drummer, so if you see me tapping, I'm just daydreaming about paradiddles. Somebody laughed. Is there a drummer here? Yeah, okay, cool, great. Like paradiddle, what in the world is that? It's one of the 26 rudimentary drum patterns. We don't have to go into that now. But so Sound Diplomacy came to Indianapolis for a couple of years, did a research project, and the output of that was the indie music strategy, and I'm sure we'll dive into that a lot more. But it basically talked about the strengths and the challenges that Indianapolis has as a music ecosystem, and I'll tee this up for later, but that report was released literally 1 month after the pandemic hit. So we'll talk more about the challenges of that, but providing insights about that work is one of the biggest reasons why I'm here. So happy to be here and thankful to hopefully provide some quality takeaways for everybody here in the audience.
Thanks, Drew. Okay, Nashara.
Good afternoon. Let's try that again. We aren't going to be that type of panel since we're talking about creativity. So with that being said, good afternoon. Thank you. There's that energy we like, because without that energy, we are not moving forward. As Paulina said, my name is Nashara Mitchell. On one hat, I am a college professor, clinical professor of entrepreneurship and innovation. Launched some incubator spaces, innovation labs, all that fun, fancy, big word stuff. As a creative, I've run the gamut from dance to actual makeup artistry, which actually paid for graduate school so I could come out with less debt. But more importantly, putting those two things together, I was able to see some of the gaps and turn those into opportunities within higher education, business, law, and life. I sit at that intersection of making those gaps opportunities for women creatives and the underrepresented. Do I have a broad scope? Absolutely. However, with that, I can be the ecosystem builder, connecting those who have not with those who have to make sure those gaps are acknowledged and we're able to connect the dollars, people, and resources to them. That includes both locally, nationally, and globally, whether it's a cultural immersion trip, whether it's a faculty exchange, whether it's actually getting our business owners into other pipelines, because if we think differently, we do differently. That's what creativity is. We make based on what we are thinking. And innovation, which is the big corporate word for creativity, that's the safe word, right? That is called applied creativity. So if we can get everyone to the point of seeing and respecting and understanding what creativity is, we can then harness truly the power of innovation and where creatives can fit into all areas of the ecosystem and not just general arts and entertainment, where many are seen to hang out. We want to make sure, as a business owner, they not only start, but they scale. And more importantly, they sustain at the level of success that they choose to have. With that being said, I've also launched one of the first benefit corporations in the state of Indiana, focused on women. This is when co-working spaces, so Drew and I worked really closely together, and years ago getting co-working spaces going and making sure the people who needed to be out front had that awareness and were plugged into those opportunities. But with all things evolve. And so now you see a consulting company because I'm positioning myself to answer questions and again, fill those gaps and to be in the spaces sometimes we are not allowed to be in, and we make our way into to get those resources to the people and the places that need to have them.
Thanks, Nashara. All right. Jake. I think it turns on, but there's magic in the back.
On.
There you go.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jake Butler. For those of you who traveled in, welcome to Indianapolis, especially from overseas. This is my third home. I was born in Chicago. I grew up in South Africa, in Cape Town. And then I came to Indianapolis. Let's go. Not for the weather. I'm not here for that. But this is my third home. And I say that because my accent is really strange, and so no one knows where I'm from. I've been in Indy for 10 years, and I've been really excited about the growth around entrepreneurship, creativity, small business. I have sort of two relevant jobs that I'll share with you real quick. One is that I run Tomorrow Bookstore, which is a small independent bookstore on the other side of downtown. We are a general interest bookstore, but really focus on global stories, works in translation, essentially bringing literature from around the world to Indianapolis. It's a big focus for us. It's really fun. If you're sticking around town, check it out. It's a good walk from here, but you can do it. We're the kind of bookstore. We've got a publisher coming in for a pop-up on Friday. We're going to bring a keg from a local brewery. I can't advertise that, but if you're here on Friday night, there'll be some beer and books and fun. So, with that, I get to sit at the intersection of authors and creators and then publishers and figuring out that, and then customers and consumers and what do people want to read. And it's a really fun space to be in, especially in an industry that I don't think has changed since about 17, 18. So that's really exciting. And then the other hat is that I run a portfolio and platform for a company called Endeavor, which is a global nonprofit, essentially with the thesis of how do we get more growth stage entrepreneurs to successfully scale, exit, and reinvest in their local community without having to go to San Francisco or go to New York or go other places to build. But what happens when more companies scale and become huge and become the next economic success story for a city or for a country. So we're in 45 countries in the US in 8 regional kind of non-coastal regions, including here in Indianapolis. So I get to sit kind of at both ends of the spectrum of business, small retail, creative business, and then working with large high growth tech, non-tech companies. And so we'll get into this, but I love thinking about ecosystem and kind of how do all those things play together. So thank you all for being here. And back to Paulina, who I want to hear about your work.
Well, as noted, I am Paulina Osheroff. I'm the executive director of Pattern, which is a nonprofit based here in Indianapolis. And we are focused on helping bolster the creative economy in Indianapolis and supporting creatives. We really hate seeing our creative young people leave because there are better opportunities elsewhere. So we're working on changing that. But I guess in my past life, I am also an entrepreneur. I own a business with my husband. He's a motivational speaker, and I manage him. And I know it's weird. And then until recently, I was also a professional photographer. I just don't have time for that anymore. But as you can see, all of us are creatives, but also ecosystem builders. We love what we do creatively and wanted to keep doing it where we lived instead of relocating. And so that's where the passion for that work comes from. And hopefully some of you guys can relate to that. But okay, let's get to it. Question number 1. You guys ready for this? Okay. In the work all of you have been doing within the creative economy, I know that you are building something that's more than a business. You are creating public good with the goal of establishing a cultural anchor, a place where creative expression, economic exchange, and community pride intersect. It also happened that you were not just opening doors to customers, but you were creating doors where none existed. Was there a moment when you realized your work was more than just selling products and services? When it became clear that you were building something that people needed on a deeper level, where it wasn't just about profit? You can go in any order. Just jump right in.
All right. So, I think with the bookstore, and I think this speaks to a lot of small and creative businesses, right? If the book industry doesn't like to talk about Amazon, especially small independent stores, but right, if you need a book fast, you pull out your phone, you pull up an app, and you order it, right? I think as a creative business, but as a community-minded business, like the first thing we have to do is create an experience that isn't offered otherwise, and that starts with community. And so, one of the goals of the bookstore is I don't care if you read or don't read, just come in, right? Like come in and meet a local Midwest publisher and have a beer. Like you can do that in our bookstore. That's a little different than maybe sort of a previous kind of generation of bookstores. Flip side is like if we talk about this in bookstores. If you don't know, Amazon has invested a couple $1 billion in the book industry. They started there. They've got the most data on books around the world globally. They bought Goodreads for $150 million. Why? For data. But if you don't know what you want to read next, you're out of luck. You pull up their app. By the way, the app sucks. Like they're not investing in us as consumers. Sorry if anyone works for Amazon. I don't know. It's okay. So to all that, like the first thing isn't how do I sell you something? The first thing is how do I give you an experience that you don't have somewhere else, and that's a value add to your life and to then to your media and to your reading and making friends and building community. Like that's the first approach. So it's actually coming at it from not how do I sell things, but how do I get more people in to build a community, to have an experience that they can't have somewhere else. And then probably they're going to buy something, or when they need their book next, they're going to come in and they're going to talk to our team who are experts and say, here's what I want, here's what I'm interested in, and we're going to have a professional recommendation for you that someone online is not going to be able to give you. I think that applies more broadly as well to creative entrepreneurs across the board, where you're not only building an output, but you're not just building it to sell something generally. You're building it to give someone an emotional response, to build a community, to give them an experience. So I think that translates broadly.
When I launched the studio, it is collaborative space, so it's called Studio B Creative Exchange. We literally are a place for creative exchange because we may have community, but to Jake's point, not a place to go, or one that is cost effective or has the resources, especially for women entrepreneurs. We have to be mindful that women are the majority caretakers, so we might need daycare, babysitting, lactation room, massage rooms, whatever may happen with childcare. And no offense to the guys we know there are some active dads as well, but in the city when we launched, women entrepreneurs were struggling because they were trying to do it all. So how can we support that woman who is trying to do it all, not only on their own, but also doing it all still fully employed as a full-time professional? So how then can we also come alongside in the professional realm, that whether the business is a plan B, plan C, or I'm just doing this to figure out what I want it to be, how can we come along and support with that space and the resources and opportunities? Solving that problem then led to understanding we had more problems to solve. So it became that snowball in responding to all of those problems, which is why the stakeholder and the constituency actually grew to create an intersected community. So we do have tech, we do have corporate, we do have nonprofit, we do have the makers who are the photographers, jewelry makers, and all of those engaging with each other. And how we actually became different, we created the programming internally. So we actually created an Invest Her program, 8 women in a circle. The give was small. Why? We want to also teach about investing. If at $100 a person, then 8 people makes $800. Where then someone can pitch and learn about another business and actually help to provide not only the funding, but actual resources and information in a safe setting. That then gets everyone comfortable to go ask for the bigger dollars or to strengthen the business. So we went in with the intention of what problems do we need to solve, and solving those immediate ones first and foremost, knowing what was happening and thinking towards the future. We shifted locations. We also then expanded into another location that it was community focused, where we didn't just focus on women and creatives, we focused on the youth to take the design and entrepreneurship information back into the family home. So then it was kids teaching family and saying, hey, what about this? One of our greatest successes in that aspect is when a student said, I don't want to intern for Honda. I want to stay here and intern for you. That was a great success because we knew they were connecting not only with the information, but knowing that they were a true stakeholder and leader in their community very early on. Did they have some other internship opportunities? Absolutely, because we were like, are you sure? Because they're paying a whole lot of money. So we want to make sure continue those opportunities, but it was one of those. And then connecting folks into the governmental realm. Here's where you're thinking, here's how we need to actually translate these big fancy words and language into something that you can understand. We actually call it de-jargon it. We're going to take all this fancy stuff and make sure you can understand at the basis of where you want to understand and still provide the meaning of what is needed or requested, because we know words are gatekeepers and all of that. So we just kept solving problems. So hence why it's called Belief. The studio is called Studio B. The B stands for Belief in Business. It is one, we went in with a mission to begin with. Our purpose was intentional. Is there always a conversation about making money or doing good? Absolutely, but we can do both. We may be slower in the game, but that's okay. Our seeds are going to root a lot deeper, sometimes the slower we go.
Like, you stole 10 questions.
Sorry.
This is like it's like panel bingo, right? How many questions can you? Okay, we're done. So send it to the
That's
audience.
it. That's our time. Did you have anything to contribute to that? Mind you, I already forgot what the question was, but what do you got?
Yeah, I think I remember. It was a few minutes ago. I would actually flip that narrative, and you said, I think the question was about, when did you realize it was something bigger than making profit?
And why is that important? Like, why do we care? Because a
Making-
lot of folks don't. It's all about the bottom line. It's all about the ROI. But we're here to argue that creativity is far more important. It will take us into the future in a way that's absolutely essential right now in the age of AI, as we've talked.
Well, so one of the outputs from the Indie Music Strategy report is that there was a $1.2 billion impact attributed directly to music, right? So something that people don't think about with the creative economy is I actually have people in my life who believe that being Taylor Swift is a viable career path for most musicians, which there's only one of Taylor Swift last time I checked, and like good for her for doing what she's doing. It's incredible stuff. But how many people are creatives and how many of those opportunities exist? There's not very many. And so I bring that up because when we think about the creative economy, I look at it as a kind of a 2x2 grid, and Pauline has heard me say this about 100 times. But you have non-creatives and non-creative jobs and non-creative fields, right? Those people are clearly not in the creative economy. Does anybody have any arguments about that? Okay. Yes. You'll get the mic in a second, Ashara. Then we have what everyone would assume is a creative job, right? Which is a creative occupation in a creative field, right? You are a audio mixer at a recording studio, right? You do something creative and you're in a creative space, right? That's also not very complicated for most people. What's really interesting is when you think about the two other boxes, which is a creative field and a creative job in a non-creative field, right? So if you're a graphic designer at a large law firm, you are doing something that's creative, but the intent of where you're working is not necessarily creative in focus. And if you flip that, right, there are a lot of lawyers who specifically work in music, right, or work in art or something else. And so there's three of those boxes out of the four that make up this entire creative economy. And so it's not this like, where are they conversation and like, how do we support these people? And it's like, oh, the creative economy is that person busking outside of a Pacers game. It's a much bigger conversation. And I think if you think about it in that lens, I think it's really important. So there's a $1.2 billion impact that we attributed to this creative economy. And you were saying earlier about like, when did you realize it was about more than money? It's because Pauline and I did a lot of work of saying, look at this impact that we made, and it really didn't resonate with anyone emotionally. Right? We always talk about how do we quantify the impact of the arts? It's so hard to do. And we did it, and it was just kind of wah, 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 right? And then we started to realize, well, wait a second, that is really, really important, right? Is figuring out what those numbers look like. But then we had to, Nashara, you said de-jargon. We had to kind of de-jargon for the people we were trying to support, but then almost re-jargon in a way to say there's this impact that's happening, but then how do you as a policymaker and as a stakeholder actually have a hand in helping us move forward with that sort of work? And so it was interesting how we had this golden nugget and we're saying like, okay, if we can finally figure out what the quantitative impact is, like we've made it. And that was just the beginning of a narrative of saying, what is a quality of place for people and how do you attract people to come somewhere? How do you keep people in a place? I'm boring, y'all. Like I eat once a day. I'm vegan, so I eat at like one restaurant in every town I've ever been in, if I'm lucky. I don't drink anymore. That's pretty boring there. Anyways, the reason I say that is because a lot of times people are like, let's open up another restaurant and like it will make people move here, right? I'm seeing some head nods, right? Listen, I worked in the restaurant industry for 15 years, so like I get it. Or it's like, let's open up another brewery, or let's have a thing that people can do. But things are always replaceable, right? It's that feeling of a place that's irreplaceable. And that is something that as we continue to do this sort of work, when you think about how do you support the creative economy, you can't underestimate that feeling, that vibe of a place in terms of quality of place, of how you're attracting people to come live somewhere, right? If you went to any sporting event and there was no music played at all, it would be, there's actually Instagram accounts where they do this and they just only play the sound effects of the basketball bouncing. It's really funny. At least for me, it's funny. But if you got rid of music and you got rid of all of that sort of in between that's happening, the energy would just get sucked out, right? If you've ever been to any sort of outdoor festival or anything, if there's not music, if there's not energy, it just isn't a thing. And that's like the reason why we all exist. I'm going to get really existential here for a second.
Well,
right?
you might also be preaching to the choir. How many people are actual creatives here in this space? Put your hand up. Okay, a lot of people. So they're looking for answers.
How many, well, just really quick, how many of you creatives are paying the bills being creative? Raise your hand. Okay, props to you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, I'll switch seats with you if anybody wants to come up here.
If I could jump in really quickly, that's the point of putting creative and economy together. Because at the end of the day, we start a business. Yes, we think about legacy and generational wealth, but at the end of the day, that business has to make what? Fill in the blank for me, folks. Money. Money makes the world go. Therefore, we have to be able to calculate and quantify that financial impact in whatever sector, industry, and realm, even if it's only for the home. That's why defining and making clear small business, scalable businesses, and everything that we're doing, you all, us, policymakers, legislators, relating it back to the financial impact catches attention and keeps it, because now, even if they are not air quote creative, side note, post-it note, my counter argument is everyone's creative. We just don't use the right words to talk about thinking and doing differently. Now, coming back, if we can relate to the financial impact and the bottom line that can influence the culture, that keeps people here, that keeps employees here, more importantly, define what a good job is, not just one that has benefits, but one that actually does lead to quality of life and this creative enterprise, solo or full business with employees or I-9 individuals, that means something to the place that we are in. So it becomes really important to say business and economy because of the financial impact, because quantifiable is a big word. We had to Sesame Street it.
Well, let me be devil's advocate here. To Drew's point, though, I love what you're saying, but it feels like even when the data exists, creative economy experts aren't invited into the conversations around economic development, because ultimately that's where we need to have those conversations. When there are meetings, when there's new hotels going up and new apartment buildings and infrastructure is being built out, and there's not a single person representing the creative class in those discussions, and then the thing is built, and the ground floor is empty for decades, it seems. And then the artists are called in to do a thing. Like, how do we not do that anymore? How do we convince folks to utilize creatives in ways that will actually end up making everybody more money and making places more interesting? Got any ideas over there?
Drew's got a vein like that. I know he's got something to say on this.
I can see it. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, how much time do I have?
Come on.
Yeah. I think it's challenging, and I have a very nonlinear career path that I'm very proud of, in that I have the creative background as a musician and understand the very small things that get in the way of helping people to be successful. But I've also worked in a lot of economic development and seen big picture and what that looks like and the challenges there. And I think there just has to be intentionality. And I think something that I find to be very interesting in this work is, what is the forcing mechanism that gets those economic development policymakers and leads to want to work with leaders in creative economy, right? Because in a perfect world, if anybody here has dealt with grants before, when there is a bit of money that is provided to an organization or many organizations, that's your forcing mechanism, right? That is the thing that gets everybody to come to the table, because there's a common goal, and everyone says, we've agreed to this and we better do it because we want to get our money. Well, that's not available and happening everywhere at all times. And so figuring out how do you incentivize those decision makers to want to, and it's not like the creative economy, it's like tech, right? When you talk about a separate tech industry, what does that even mean anymore, right? Tech is literally in everything. And so when you say, oh, they're only a tech company, it's like you can't just have tech in and of itself stand up by itself. And the creative economy world is not just its own weird thing that we decide to engage when we want to engage. It's already happening and it's everywhere already. And so I think the storytelling is one of the biggest things that economic development gets wrong. I think there's so many metrics that happen of like percentage this, percentage that, and this, and I'm not saying that those things aren't important, but at the end of the day, if someone wants to move to a place or if someone wants to be emotionally affected by where they live, it's going to be a human connection that makes the biggest difference. And so I think that's an area of opportunity when we think about the creative economy, and also making sure that that places that are trying to be more intentional about supporting, design arts, performing arts, whatever it may be, that they're trying to do their own thing. And it has to be led by those individuals, but they need a spokesperson who's in it, right, that can also sort of speak that language, which I think is very hard to find. But I think being able to find that sort of individual to be upfront is a huge part of that.
So I'll add on too. So, I mean, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs through both of my jobs. And one thing from that I've learned is entrepreneurs are going to build shit. Entrepreneurs are going to see problems and they're going to think of solutions and they're going to build something to solve that problem. And so in creative economy and creative entrepreneurs, right, like, we're talking about Indianapolis and we won't be too specific to the city. I think certain cities and countries do it better than others in supporting the arts and making it easier for artists and creators to do that in a financially stable way. But I'd encourage, there's many of you here who are creative entrepreneurs, right? Like, do it without them. Build the things you want and learn to be good at what you do and solve the problems that you want to solve, irrespective of what other people. Now, easier said than done in a lot of ways. I respect that. But I work with a lot of authors. We host, our bookstore could fit in here 4 times. It's a small store, but we host probably 100 authors a year, publishers, and there's authors that come in and we'll host for a pop-up. And we had a poet who I know well, and I said, here's, you're going to sell your books. Here's how it's going to go. Here's the economics. And he said, I don't really care if I sell anything. I'm just going to sit here. I was like, fine. That works for us. That's all right. You're doing this because you want to create something beautiful and that's valuable to the world. Amazing. However, if you want to have a greater impact from a business standpoint, you need financial sustainability. And that's what we think about from the bookstore standpoint. Our financial sustainability doesn't mean that I'm a millionaire. It means that we host 15 other small businesses, pop-ups every year. We support publishers. We support 100 authors a year. Like, that's what our financial stability as a business can do. And the authors, authors in particular are small businesses, right? Like, if you don't know what a P&L is and you don't know what gross margin is, like, you're going to have a harder time doing your craft and doing your creative endeavor from a business perspective. So all the way looping back around to, from our perspective as a bookstore, right? We've been able to build to a certain point, reach financial sustainability. That would be easier with systems and systemic changes that would make that easier. But again, it comes back to seeing a problem that we saw, which was downtown Indianapolis didn't have a bookstore. Seems like something we could solve. Let's do it. And to the point of Indianapolis in the book realm in the last 3 years has had a really fascinating renaissance around books. And there's 25 bookstores within a 45-minute radius. We do an annual book crawl that brings 3,000 or 4,000 people from around the Midwest to participate in that every year. And now the Indie Chamber calls me, which is the outcome, right? So now we've got the support from an institutional standpoint, having gone and done the thing and built the thing and solved the problem we wanted to solve.
Love it. Thank you. Yeah, that's right. Okay. We've got 8 minutes left. Do we want to take audience questions? Does anybody have any questions about any of this? Yes, sir. How do we do this with the mics or not?
as creators, could you elaborate on playing well in the sandbox with others? I think oftentimes as creators, and I put myself in this box, you get caught up in how good you are at your craft, but people spend money with people they like. And so there has to be a likability. You have to play well in the sandbox to get invited to the table. So could y'all elaborate on that a little bit?
I think that's true anywhere. I don't see that different in creative endeavors in the economy. Like that's truly anywhere, which is you've got to interact with the community, right? It comes down to your goals too, right? Like what do you want to do? What is your outcome supposed to be? I mentioned in Indianapolis, there's about 25 bookstores, all within about a 45-minute radius. So there's for a mid-sized American city, that's a lot. On one hand, the success, we don't look at the other bookstores as competition because our success does not hinge on what they do. Our success hinges on how well we execute our mission and build our community. And so, one, there's that element, and I see that in the creative space a lot where, right, like having one band from a city really isn't enough, right? If you're in the music space, right? You actually need an ecosystem and a community in any creative space that is exponentially going to support the rest of the creators in that field. And then you add in music and arts and all the things, you start adding that up, that helps. So, I don't think that's any different how you interact and approach it. There's small p politics anywhere. Politics, how do people make rules to get along together in a space, right? Like, I just don't think that's different in a creative space than anywhere else.
It's all relationships, right? It's relationship driven. It's trust factors. It's, did you meet your original deadline? Did you have the opportunity? How did you treat? Even down to the admin or the person answering the phone. It's all relationship driven, and that also circles back to getting invited to the table. It's relationships and making sure you're engaging, and if there is a conflict, you take it head on. You can do it tactfully, but how do you address those, and how do you work and move, or as my mom says, how are you shaking and moving right now, right? How are you actually presenting yourself within the culture to show that you are a cultural fit? And if you are perceived as a misfit or egotistical, do you have another ally or advocate that can still speak on your behalf to then move within that circle or that culture that you're wanting to continue building a relationship with and or working behind the scenes with, however it is, but it comes down to that. For me, it's been about relationships and trust, and hey, sometimes I'm a whole lot. I can be a whole lot or I can be a little bit, right? But it's also that psychological safety that people who aren't comfortable with what you're doing and or who you are, and when you put those together, who's going to stand in place for you to make sure you can still be present in whatever capacity.
I'll just say very quickly, you may have heard the phrase, you can't think about thriving when you're thinking about surviving, right? And most creatives are trying to survive. And there is brutal competition amongst creatives for a limited resources. If anybody here works in the nonprofit sector, right? We're all working to try to get a slice of a very small pizza. And until that changes and until there are significant dollars without conditions attached to it, and if we understand that actually being creative for the sake of being creative is incredibly valuable in and of itself, there's always going to be this sort of, elbows kind of hitting each other at the dinner table, right? Because there's not enough to go around for everybody. And so I think that is something where, I currently live in Tulsa, which is one of the most philanthropic cities in the entire world. And because that there are so many dollars, there are things that are supported and people can think about how to take next steps with initiatives and think about how to create, Tulsa also has a very thriving music scene. They have Kane's Ballroom, which has been there forever. And that's the birthplace of, Western honky tonk. It's a, very historically, from a music perspective, it has a lot of history there, but Tulsa as a city has a lot of history and a lot of it is not positive. And so them trying to embrace what the arts look like and doing it in a way that brings everybody to the table has been a really important part of that. But once again, until that competition amongst creatives can be a good thing to a certain extent, but I think a lot of times it pits the wrong people against each other, which ultimately makes a lot of people relocate and go somewhere else and try to find new opportunities. And I know that that's happening in a lot of communities, not just in Indianapolis.
Yes, go for it.
Yes, I think this is great to piggyback off what Drew just said. So my name is, let me try to get away
You're
from it.
good.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Jetta Vaughn. I am owner of Jetta VENT LLC, where culture meets comedy through HR, comedy, and wellness. So I'm an HR professional that is also funny. So, thank you. So my question stems from creatives also in the space of cheapening the profession. So for me as a stand-up comedian, I go to a lot of comedy festivals and I teach comedians how to work with corporations. I'm like, hey, I'm an HR professional. They're hiring me as a comedian to come in and help their teams. And if I can do it, you can too. But what I find is that a lot of people take bad deals and they cheapen the profession. And so with you all in the creative space, what have you done to help people see the light and say, hey, if we all collectively stop doing this thing, people will see us and see our value. And if you haven't done it, what can we do to help people see that if you stop taking these bad deals, people will stop seeing us as here and start paying us here where we're worth?
Such a great question. So, of course, the challenge is that a lot of times, because creativity and various forms aren't necessarily like the highlight of your K through 12, a lot of creatives just sort of wander into the thing. And so a lot of them don't even know that it could be a profession. And so it's not being taught. The business of being a creative entrepreneur is not really being taught anywhere, and it should be. Because you're absolutely right. We tend to undervalue ourselves because we just don't know what we could make in that instance. So, yeah, there's a lot to be done there. Full recognition that that could really help close the gap, because if we can professionalize our creatives to think of themselves more as small business owners and professionals like any other, we could help ourselves. We shouldn't just be laying the challenges that we have as creators at the feet of policymakers and governments and whatnot. We have to take some responsibility as well. But to launch those programs, to bring that kind of education, we do need support from our stakeholders. So it's a little bit of a catch-22, right? Like, hey, if you guys can help us professionalize this through the programming that you offer kids that are going to be engineers or attorneys, like that would make a big difference actually. But it's such a big undertaking. It's a hard sell, because that means rewriting curriculums and using different language and all those types of things. But yeah, great question. If anybody has any solutions to that or has done that successfully, implemented that kind of programming for creatives at K through 12 or even college, please let me know. I would love some frameworks that have been successful out there in the world.
I think to double click on that real quick is you have to have almost like a union mindset, right? And like the average pay of a musician to play a gig is the same as it's been in 1970, right? Hey, you want to play my bar for 3 hours? I'll pay you $150. Give me a break, right? And I play drums, so I have to lug the heaviest stuff. I mean, they're hollow, so they're not that heavy. I won't like pad my stats or anything, but it's an afterthought, right? It's like, oh, we forgot to make this thing that we're doing interesting, so let's pay somebody a couple $100. I've seen people laughing because it's true, right? It's like, oh, we forgot to make something that's actually somebody wants to go to, so let's pay somebody a couple $100 to do it. And so I think being intentional, I'm not saying you have to literally create a union, but like getting people together, like some sort of guild, and just say, we are all worth this. We're going to band together and say, we are going to get paid a certain amount. We're going to demand that. And if not, and if they just want to have bad entertainment at these things, we all know that there's people that are in the garage working on their craft who will take whatever they want to pay them, right? But they're soon going to start to realize, wait a second, we're not tapping in to our best talent here. And so I think that kind of intentionality amongst the people who have that talent and get it and are actually trying to make a living, I think that's really important. But yeah, it's helping those decision makers. I think once you have that tough conversation once, in theory, you shouldn't have to have it again. And also, if it's a corporate entity or a big place, it's like they have the money to pay you. That's the other thing too, right? It's not like they're like, oh, we have we have this gala for 2,000 people. We just can't come up with another couple $100. Like that's ridiculous. I'm sorry, it just is. So sometimes it's just learning to say no, even when it's a good opportunity. But
Who else? Is there?
Sorry,
oh,
really quickly.
Yes.
It's no and. It's
Yes.
no and or no but. Here's my price. My price is my price. If you want me and my quality, this is my price.
Thank you, Nashara.
So to piggyback off of that, I went to art school in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I studied graphic design. You and I probably know some of the same people in the Tulsa ecosystem. I'm in ecosystem work now. I work at the Startup Zoo in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We work with early stage companies and help connect them to resources and mentorship. One of the things that we see is consistent between creative entrepreneurs and even technical entrepreneurs is they have no idea what unit economics are. And people don't understand what's it cost me to make this and what's my margin for delivering it, especially when the value is human time. Because what I pay myself per hour is a myth, right? Like, I've done a lot of work in my career, and there are lots of times where I've worked for 50 cents an hour because I was trying to solve a problem that was hard to solve. And in the creative space, there's an industry that's developed around distribution that understands once it's done, it has a value, and you can sell it and you can repeat it, and the creative and the distributor can make money. And books are awesome at that, and published music is awesome at that, and even concerts that repeat the same concert over and over in different cities are awesome at that. But like at the individual scale, we don't talk to creatives about how to build units that are reusable, that create long-term residual value. And I think when we think about how the creative economy connects to what's happening in growing ecosystems, it's how do we teach those creative folks about unit economics in the same way that we teach coders about unit economics and understanding the value per active user.
Yeah, and using the right language. If you have, I've worked and I know a lot of people who run entrepreneurial support organizations, and I can assure you that a buddy of mine who is an up-and-coming rapper is not going to Google entrepreneurial support, right? And be like, oh, cool, right? They're going to say that I've figured it out, right? I've just hustled and I've figured it out. And like, we're creating resources that can support creatives, but they don't seek them out because it's not, once again, using language that they actually can understand. They're smart enough to get it, but they self-identify as this isn't for me, even though it is.
Hello, everyone. My name is Asma. I'm from Nigeria. I'm sure you can tell by the accent. I'm glad. Mine is not a question. I'm going to just add to what the lady said over there. And then I needed to say this before I leave here. I am so excited to be here. Like, I'm from Nigeria. I'm from the, like the marginalized sector, region of Nigeria. You wouldn't expect I would be a creative. I own a creative agency. We run campaigns, like marketing campaigns. We collaborate with influencers. We actually manage influencers for brands. If they want like videos, they make videos for them monthly, organic videos and all of that. So back to what she said. I had the issue because, most of these influencers do not even know, like they just happen, into the business or into the industry. They just like, videoing themselves when they're doing something, and then a brand sees them, oh, Coca-Cola, for instance, okay, just put this in your daily life. Let's see what you do every day and just incorporate that into your daily life. They charge really, really low. So they come to me. I source them for the agency, so for the brand. I'm like, oh, this person is popular in the northern part of Nigeria. I think a collaboration with her would do good for your brand, right? Okay, so what's your fee? It's like $20 for a whole year of business. I'm like, no, we are not gonna charge that, no. So now, what I'm doing now is I have a set of them, about 20 creatives that I'm working with. So I have now identified a gap. So what we're moving in now for my business is we're creating like a hub where we're gonna, educate these creatives, let them know what they're worth, polish their talents, and for them to charge as much as they are worth, or even more than what they're worth. So I'm so happy to know that we share a common, a commonality. I'm not sure if that English is correct.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my problem, you have the same problem. And I was thinking, I'm not doing well. So today I know I'm doing well. Can I have a round of applause for myself?
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you so much. Because we are not taken seriously. I remember my siblings would always see me with a laptop. I do not have an office, I'm like, I do serious work. I have TV commercials out there, like people see it and they're like, you did that? Did you just bring the costume. I'm like, no, ideation. I came up with the concept. We did the production. It's on air. It's everywhere. And they're like, wow. So you do all of that? So I know we're not taken seriously. And I thought it was just maybe an African, Northern Nigeria, Muslim, because I'm a woman kind of thing. But I'm so glad to see that as creatives, we have this common issue and we're working towards solving it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Nope.
Oh,
Okay. Are you going to say something?
Yeah,
Okay.
With that as well, working with entrepreneurs, and this is for creative entrepreneurs, people who are starting a small business, all the way to with Endeavor, with high growth companies. One thing that I often ask and that entrepreneurs struggle to articulate is what is your goal, right? Like, what do you want to do? If a creative pursuit is an outlet where you just want to write poetry because it's beautiful and valuable, amazing. If you want to paint and create art just for the inherent intrinsic value of that, amazing. However, if you're an entrepreneur, what is your goal? Do you want to do this full time? Next question, how much money do you need to make? Great, let's back into putting together, let's talk about unit economics. Let's talk about price elasticity, all these fun things, right? I studied economics and I won't get into that. But from a creative standpoint,
Thank you.
being able, but it's important, right? Like, because then if you're a creative entrepreneur and you don't want to do that, then you got to be successful enough to pay an accountant. Great, let's plan for that. So thinking about really tactically, and this bleeds into your life and your family and what bills you got to pay and all of that kind of stuff. What is your goal? And then you do need to build a business around that, whether it's a nonprofit, that's a business model. Whether it's just you, that's a business model. Whether you want to own a company, agencies, creatives, you also start to think about like, what is the line of what's the business you might not want to do, but it's going to pay the bills, right? And where's that line for you? Do you go do some corporate work because it pays better? Do you work for a company, do you do some consulting on the side, right? Thinking about those things and being really, really honest with yourself and closer to what is your goal. That is going to help you design your pricing, design your business, design your life around that. And that's a really important exercise, particularly for creative entrepreneurs to do.
Really quickly, as a closing question, because it came a couple times in the audience. Can I do a big group session, rapid fire? All right, really quickly for rapid fire. There was a question or two regarding metrics. How do we actually measure this thing that we call creativity? How do we show that it's an asset? We know the basic economic standards from our P&Ls and expenses and losses and all of those things and all of that. But then when we're talking about legislative, policymakers, stakeholders, going to corporate versus going to a neighborhood organization or a granting organization, what are the metrics that we actually need to use? So as a very quick rapid fire, and let's start at this table and then go round and round. What are metrics we can actually use? And literally it just becomes a yell it out. What metrics are you currently using, or what metrics do you think we should use? Is it people count? Is it job creation? Is it job sustainability? Is it people leaving? Is it people coming in? Is it the dollar value in the number of partners? What are some of the metrics we can have? Ready, go.
Job creation.
Job creation.
What else? What else? What else?
New business. What else we got? Number of participants from these two tables. What else we got? Metrics. Project delivery rate. Yes, sir.
Are your clients successful?
Are clients successful? Moving that needle forward. Other metrics. What is that? NPS. Tell us what NPS means for you.
Net Promoter Score.
Net Promoter Score. Any over here? Metrics. Y'all like, we just gonna do it. Revenue.
Property value per acre.
Fantastic. We want to keep gentrification out. Property value. If we raise that property value, we want to keep it. Other metrics.
Number of return customers.
Return customers. Showing how we're an asset.
New lead conversion.
New lead conversion into what? Define it. Converting into?
Long-term.
Good job. Long-term customers. Other metrics? All right.
Nice. Okay, so we can actually quantify and qualify some of the creative. We should be trying to. Okay. All right. I know you guys are really anxious to get rolling with your own little table exercises. I hope that you enjoy them. So The challenge is this. You've been handed, your city has been handed $500,000 to grow its creative economy. No strings, no red tape. Just one clear ask. Use it to build the future. What would you invest in? Space, talent, storytelling, systems, capital access. There's a little leaflet on each table that mentions those. So this isn't about fantasy funding. It's about imagining what's possible. So would love for you guys to put your heads together to see if we can come up with some solutions to some of the challenges that we have. And then at the end of it all, we'll have representative from each table share it out, and then we'll be done. And we're going to walk around and chat with you guys and answer any questions and just get to know you all. And go. Thank you.
We have about 20 minutes. If anyone's bailing, bail now, and then condense some of these tables. Because we're gonna do some homework time. All right, Paulina, 25 minutes, 20 minutes? 30 minutes. Excellent. Oh, what's up, man? Good to meet you in person. Yeah, cool. See you tonight. What are you doing tonight? I'm partying with us. Cool. Yeah, man, it was awesome. Pleasure. Thanks for coming out. I'm glad you made it here too. How was the program? Academic thing? Good experience either way? I'm glad you're here. Cool. Yep.
I mean.
All righty. We're rushing this along because we know some of you all want to head to another session and some of you all just want to get out of here. So either way, we got you, we got you. We are going to have, you just got here. Well, we'll extend it for you. You can stay. How's that? So we know there's some fantastic conversation happening, and we will go and make sure we hear all these fantastic ideas. And those who have already stepped away, I will try and share some of their thoughts because they were some really, really solid comments as well. So which way do you want to start? Your table? Okay. So again, our mission was to pick some of those things for that $500,000 challenge. How do you anticipate spending $500,000?
All right, so we discussed that we would disperse it. Can you hear us? Can you hear me now? Okay, awesome. So we would disperse it through a few different places. As we thought about it, the two main things that we felt like were foundational for investment were physical space and system support. Physical space seems to be one of the biggest obstacles for creatives. It's just affordable space. So that has to be there in order to even kind of get started. And then system support was something that, remind me your name. Naomi shared. Can you tell us why that is?
Yeah, so I'm a college student right now, and I started a company with some of my peers our freshman year of college, and a big struggle that we had was we didn't know where to go. Like, we had all of these ideas, but we didn't know where to go to do it the right way. And so what we were kind of discussing is that if there's a solid system in place, then everything will kind of fall naturally. I forgot, I think it was you who was saying it, but once you get the system down right and the physical space, then naturally the storytelling comes in and the talent development. So yeah.
Really quickly, let's do a college roll call. Who's here from Indiana University Bloomington? You have a great place and ecosystem with IU Innovates over in the Von Lee building. Who's here from, let's bounce out of Indy, Anderson University? My Anderson folks have left. IU Indy or Purdue Indy? You all have fantastic opportunities. Do you know where your opportunities are? Yes. Do you know where your innovation and eShip hub is? Fantastic. All right. Who else do we have? We have Butler over here. Where are we going? Where are we going at Butler? You got it. The Innovation Lab or any part of the E&I department. You got it. You got it. Did I miss any schools? I saw those name tags. Okay, I wanted to make sure in regards to your system and to acknowledge our students that are here. All righty, this team is ready to go.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Star, and I'm from Jamaica. So what our team decided is that we would definitely focus on system support. So a good chunk would go to that, and talent development. Now, based on what we discussed, we would not put too much into a physical space, but instead we would partner. Probably it's a community center, a church, whatever it may be within the community. So we would partner. So we would not put as much into a physical space. And of course, that is because someone at this table actually got a 500,000 grant for this kind of thing. And what took place is that most of it went into the physical space. So there was not as much resources for developing the creatives. Now, from the fact that we're doing talent development and we're getting persons in, we would then use that kind of development to help with storytelling and visibility. And then access to capital would be the second thing we would put a good amount of resources in, because of course we want to create the kind of sustainability for our creatives. So that's what our table decided.
Hey everyone. So for our table, we have an awesome table, and we have a couple people from Nigeria. And so for our example, we're going to use on Nigeria to showcase how that money would go. So also in Nigeria, one thing we learned is that when you invest, like when you buy a plot of land, you own that land. You don't pay taxes or anything. So that allows you to put your money further, and you also own every part of it. So then you can build the infrastructure, you can rent it out, all these things, and not have to pay additional expenses and taxes back because you own all that. You also own all the expenses according to it. So when our table decided we're going to build the infrastructure, we'll rent it out, but we also would have that as an area where we do talent development, because as we've heard, not only at this table, but all around, that one of the biggest issues right now is teaching creatives that not only can you learn the arts, but learn how to make a business around it. So that's what we really highlighted.
Yoo-hoo.
Hi, my name's Olivia Pruitt. I go to Butler University and I'm from Kentucky. And here at our table, we talked about why we should invest in storytelling and visibility specifically. We discussed how we believe the future of capitalism is going to be swinging from AI to human-made stories, hearing how the product was made, hearing where it was made, who it was made by. That is what I feel like consumers are going to want more. Storytelling and visibility only leans into that. You might pay $5 for a t-shirt from a company you don't know about, or a company with bad human rights practices, but you'll pay $40 to know where it came from, to know that it was like handmade, to know it was developed and there was care and thought put into the process of it. So specifically in building the future of our business, storytelling and visibility, but that also integrates with investing in talent development. People want artisans, people want local, people want handmade, people want to invest in their communities, and that's the best way. If you want to fall in love with your communities, support the businesses that support them. Thank you guys, have a good one.
Great job. Great job.
Good job. Yeah. You did it.
All right, so our table talked about access to capital is the number one driver that we put cash into, and putting a significant chunk into funding a very small number of creative projects so that those projects could build something at scale that was sustainable and would be something people could come back and engage with over and over and over again. After that's built, then you invest in talent development so that new people can learn to do the thing that was done in that space, and it creates the next generation that creates the next iteration of that same art. And then you invest in storytelling, because really, when it's good, storytelling happens peer-to-peer, where people go, I went and saw this, you have to go see this, and we don't have to pay for that. Right? Like, we only have to pay for it when the story isn't cool. When the story is great, it tells itself, and the work is to make sure that we're positioning that in a good way, but that starts with building a thing that's super exciting.
I'm the last person standing from our group, but we had a great discussion, and we talked about all 5 of these and how we could use our $500,000. And the first thing we talked about was providing access and supplementing, not providing it for free, because we believe if creatives and business owners don't have some skin in the game, then they're not going to be serious about it. So when it came to the physical space, we would partner with current co-working organizations, and we talked about what's happening here in Indianapolis. There are 3 spaces that are provided by what's called like an Indie Biz Pass, where if you're an entrepreneur, you can get access to all 3 spaces for a discounted rate, and that's supplemented. So we would put money into that program where the business owners would put in a small portion and they would have access to all of these spaces. And then we went down to storytelling and visibility. And in these physical spaces, they have podcasting rooms. They have all of these co-work spaces. So you can tell your own story and get your own visibility. Again, you have that skin in the game. You have the resources. We've given it to you. It's up to you to tell your story and get yourself out there. Then we talked about access to capital. In these spaces, we have companies like Local Lisk and other funders who are there to help small business owners get grant funding as well as loans and all those things. So we have access to capital. As long as those individuals are there, you can meet with those people in that space that you already have access to. And once you have access to capital, then you can have that talent development, hire more people to help. And with system support, we talked about not reinventing the wheel, utilizing things that are out there. We talked about the Verizon Small Business Digital Ready platform, where it's free for entrepreneurs. There are live classes, there are self-paced courses that you can take, and each quarter you get an opportunity to do a grant, apply for a $10,000 grant. And if you're not familiar with that, see me after this. So we dived into all 5 of them, and yeah, we were short but effective.
You were. And thank you. And there was one more from someone who left, and it was focused on neighborhood storytelling and to where there are impoverished or underutilized in areas, whether it's a house or building or something that has a wall, to actually use the arts and create murals. If that house or building then is set for demolition, that mural is actually created in such a way that it's not demolished. It actually can be taken off and separated from the building, then reinstalled, whether in a pocket park or whether in a specific place in the neighborhood, to continue building that culture and connection. And more importantly, the artists who are commissioned for that work, i.e. commissioned for that work, are paid for their services and involved every step of the way. That was one final activity. One final suggestion. With that being said, we appreciate you all hanging in there for this hour and 45-minute session. And guess what? We're going to give you some time back. So feel free to hang around and chat and get to know each other and engage and connect. Enjoy the rest of your GEC. We are pleased to have you here in the city, and continue building your own ecosystem and become a business owner, not just an entrepreneur, and move the creatives forward. Have a good one.
Thanks, Nashar. You should have been the moderator.